All right, welcome to the Nathaneal podcast. Today we have a special guest, Jason Fox. Jason, thank you for hopping in. I really admire your work. Uh, you're one of the best, most underrated, I would say, even. So I appreciate you for hopping in, man.
Of course, man. I don't know, underrated. Like I've had that before. Actually, I'm like, am I getting a compliment or is he having a jab at me? But I know it comes from a good place. I know. I appreciate it, man. You're all
Yeah,
good.
the reason why I say underrated is because, like, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong with this, you're making like, more or less 100K per month in under 10,000 followers across all platforms, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's right. I mean, I just think though, like, I mean, we'll get into it, but like, we've had a lot of clients recently who've had a lot of followers who are like broker than some of my clients who have less followers. We'll
Yeah.
touch on that.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to first touch on your journey because you actually did kind of sort of take the traditional route because
Mhm.
you took a scholarship. Correct me if I'm
Yep.
wrong with this. You took a scholarship, went to US, like a football scholarship, and took business administration there and learned
Yep.
all about business.
Mhm.
So I want to talk more about, like, did that help you, like the college stuff, studying traditionally, that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually do have a differing opinion on this to a lot of people. So in general, I don't believe that college is necessary for like a lot of people. You know, the traditional degrees with Medicare, medical law, all of that. I do think there is some necessity to having a college degree, but in business, I don't really think there is. However, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing because from 18 to 22, like you think you're an adult, but you're very young at that age. Like you don't know what you're doing. Like how old are you right now?
I'm 22.
22. See,
Yeah.
you have no idea what you're not kidding. Like you are young, right? You're,
Yeah.
you're really young. You actually don't really realize how young you are until 25, 26 because it's just a different, your mind is growing until 25. There's so much development in your
Mm.
brain. And so that you just kind of switch and you see. So I do think that it's good to have that experience, but I also think it's good to learn a little bit more about yourself and to, speak and connect with different people. It's a very expensive way to do that though. I'm saying this coming from a person who I didn't have to pay anything for college, so it was easier for me. So I enjoyed that. And then one of the things that I do think is that necessary for everyone is find someone outside of your family who you can find inspiration from and like a mentor figure. And so
Mm.
my college professor, like I was always interested in money my whole life, and he came in and he goes, "Hey, I built my company. I sold it for $40 million. I'm only here because I retired and I would go to the gym at 10 a.m. And who goes to the gym at 10 a.m.? Retired old guys. And if you go to the locker room, they're all just walking around naked, and you're just like, I don't want to be a part of this crew. So he came back and taught, and I was like, that's really cool. That's what I want to do with my life. And that actually spurred me on to be an entrepreneur. Like, and my dad was an entrepreneur all his life, but that was like kind of the catalyst for me. So in a way, yes, it did help with business. And I do think a lot of fundamentals are there. Like I talk to some entrepreneurs, I'm like, oh, well, what's your EBITDA? So like, basic formulas of business. And like, oh, I don't even know. I've never heard of that before. You're just like, okay, like you still need the fundamentals.
Right. So when you went to US, did you already know that you were going to start a business, or like what was your vision initially before you started everything?
Yeah. So I wanted to play sport professionally. Like that was always my goal. And I think that I always knew that like business was something that was huge for me because my dad, he hasn't had a job since he was 20 years old, right? And when he was 20, he was working for his dad who was, ran a cleaning business. They cleaned bars and stuff together. And so that is like infected in me. And I've just always had huge ambitions with everything that I do. And I always wanted to do a lot more. So, just doing the sport and then coming back and I'm like, all right, well, I do want to go into the business side of things. So it wasn't necessarily planned out, but it did unfold like that.
Right. And when you went back, you also mentioned, like, in one of your first video in YouTube, I saw that, like,
Mm.
you said that it was hard for you to look for clients initially, like you tried LinkedIn and all that stuff. Like, how was that journey for you as sort of like a startup, right? How did you cope with that? Like, how did you find those clients, and how was that journey for you?
Yeah. So um, it was hard after the initial phase. So what I always say to people is like that when you first start your own business is you need to be like a vegan CrossFitter, right? And you know how you know that they're a vegan CrossFitter is because they'll freaking tell you. You need to be like those people, and you need to tell absolutely everyone exactly who you
Right.
are and what you do. And so the first thing that I did after I decided to start my business, I went and told my mum, and she's like, "Oh, nice." And she loves bragging about me. She spoke to a friend the next day, and then that friend, her husband was actually needing what I offered, and so I met with him and charged him like I don't know, it was like $25 an hour. It was so silly, but that is how I got my first client. And then I told my dad, and I told one of my friends, and his dad wanted him help. My mom, who she worked for, actually wanted help. It was just a whole network. And okay, yes, that's a little bit of luck. Granted, it was luck
Yeah.
and timing. I'll admit that. It's really nice having a mom who's a great salesperson for you. That helped. It wasn't a handout though. She said, "I'll get you the meeting, but you've got to do the work." I'm like, "I know." And so just telling those people is really important. Then I announced on Facebook, got a couple people here and there. After that initial buzz though, it wore down and you've got to kind of expand the network. But in the initial, just being as loud as possible, it works.
Right. Yeah. So, just funny story. That's exactly how I signed my first client as well. Like
Amazing.
literally, I didn't do it with my family, but every single follower that I had on Twitter, I just DM'd them like, "Yo, I started ghostwriting. Do you know anyone who needs it?" And like, I would just DM everyone, and I was lucky enough to find a guy who actually needed it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's this thing though. Like I always talk about this with offers is that um, a lot of people like give up with cold DMs because they think that it's like cold to salt. Well, you've got to think like if you're trying to sell, like let's say you're trying to sell a house to me, I'm not buying a house right now. But our
Yeah.
neighbor, they're actively looking for a house. So if you cold DM them and hit them and say, "Hey, I'm a mortgage broker. I can help you get a mortgage," they're going to be open to it. You've got to think with cold DMs, it's not always about the immediate sale. But if you messaged me, gave me some good advice, say, "Here's what you should get prepared, this and that," cool. In 6 months, maybe when I am ready, then you'll be my person. And I think that what you did was like, it's, you created your own luck by going
Yeah.
out there, right? So, and
Yeah.
I love that. That's really good.
Awesome. So just to clarify, initially were you doing like digital marketing, like a do for you service?
Yeah, I was doing, well, I initially started as like doing her websites and I'm like horrible at that. I was doing like Wix websites and, yeah, I'll tell the transition story. So I was doing Wix websites and I was reasonably good at it. The thing that like separated me wasn't the design or anything like that. It was like knowing how to actually make the website function in order to get the result that they were after. So I was always pushing it as a funnel rather than a website. Then my brother, he was working in real estate for a really good real estate agent in Sydney, and I messaged him and I said, "Hey, you guys like don't have any web presence. Like, do you want some help with that?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." Met with his boss. His boss signed me as a client, and because my brother was in charge of kind of their marketing, he was like helping me with the website, just telling me what to do. And then he actually just logged into the portal and did it all. And I'm like, I got paid, and he did all the work, so it was perfect. And so I said to him, I was like, "Hey man, like you're really good at this stuff. Why don't you come work with me?" He said, "Cool, what's the pay?" I said, "Nothing, but we'll figure it out." And he goes, "All right." And so he moved back up and moved in with me, and that's how we started the agency. And then we moved over to Facebook ads from there.
Right. One thing that stood out, you just recently published a video um, like about how to scale from 0 to 20K. And one thing that you talked about there that really stood out to me was you said you don't want to learn basketball from Michael Jordan. You want to learn it from Steve Kerr because, like if you're like a small guard who has to prove himself, you know all the nuances. Well,
Exactly.
Michael Jordan like has this talents and like has all the skills, which is kind of like what you did as well. You did like the ugly parts, like the nitty gritty parts. So
Mm.
tell more about that, man.
Yeah, I think that's. I was trying to figure out an analogy with that, and I think Steve Kerr's a good one because it also like suits the story because he's gone on and coached really well. It
Yeah,
does help me there, but they played on the same team, and I don't think people realize that. Right?
yeah,
They know Steve Kerr as the coach, which is even more credit to what I'm saying. He was like reasonably tall. He's 6'3", so that's a tall fella, but unathletic, not very skilled, not talented in any way, but he had to learn all of the fundamentals the right way. I'm actually really big on this point, and I'm going to bring it up a lot more, is that I think that a lot of people learn and they go and hire talented coaches. And there's nothing wrong with talented coaches. I'm not going to hold anything against them. But I've spoken to coaches who say, like, you ask them, oh, like, how are you marketing so well? Or how are you getting clients? And they're like, I just post. Like, they don't know. And that's okay. Like, that's not the end of the world. It's still, they can grow their business. And I actually have signed clients who have that, where it's just, they're super talented. But if you didn't do all of the hard, gritty work of actually learning the fundamentals, then you're not going to be able to build that long term. And there's some talented entrepreneurs who have recognized that in our space, that have gone and back and hired fundamentals, and then they're going to take off. They're going to be way more successful than myself because they have both. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's better when you learn someone from the fundamentals, because they'll pass that on to you.
So what would you say the fundamentals are from like that you learned throughout your journey?
Yeah, so I think that I always bring this is Alex Sharfin says that, like, there's the 5 core function of business. You've got like lead gen, lead nurture, lead conversion, lead retention, and upsell, right? Mm-hmm. So the focusing on those things and then assessing how can I fix, like, what area am I trying to like fix with any problem or anything that I'm trying to achieve. And so going back to those, so let's just start with lead generation. Lead generation's one where talent really makes a big difference, is because you just know, and you can see it on Twitter because the algorithm's very favorable. You can just see these people, is they post something and you're like, that's not really that good of a post. Hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments, and they have leads from it. You're like, what are they doing a little bit differently? And so that is where I would go, okay, well, instead of trying to reverse engineer and use their hooks or anything, let me use fundamentals. Let me create a template for, this is what we need to do to post to allow us to generate more leads. And then in terms of like lead nurture, some people will just like send an email, get hundreds of replies. Whereas for me, like, I'll need to send an email, send a follow-up, send this, send that. So it's really building out all of my systems where, so someone who is talented, it might take them a little bit of effort. For me, it takes me 5 times the effort that they need, but next month I'll be able to do it again, and I'll be able to teach someone that, and the month after and the month after. And so if their talent wears off or the market changes, I'm still in the game because everything I do is based on the systems, hitting my numbers, hitting KPIs. It's a super like masculine way to operate a business, right? There's no flow and creativity in that sense. But I believe that if you set that stuff up, the KPIs, and set all of your, fundamentals in place, then you can actually have flow and it can compound. Because all of those systems in place, I wake up today, my appointment setter sent 300 something DMs already, right? People watching this have probably gotten a couple of them. And now I can go in and I can create and do all of the things that I need to do and be creative because my systems are working in the background.
Gotcha. I love that idea. Like, because what you want is, recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you want systems that would replicate that over and over again. A lot of people, on X, and I was a part of that group as well, was like looking for the quick buck, right? Mm-hmm. Looking for the shortcut, like get that sale, and like just trying to get higher and higher revenue without building, at least for me, what I experienced throughout my journey in X is they don't talk a lot about retention. They talk a lot about acquisition, but rarely do I get lessons about keeping your clients long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it happens all too often. Is that like, so I'm actually for the challenge that we're doing in November, is I'm putting together the slides at the moment. And I knew the points that I wanted to hit, and I wanted to showcase and like break some beliefs around retention. And I actually didn't even realize, like, I'm teaching about retention, and I didn't even realize how powerful it is when I actually looked at the numbers. There was a client of mine in, I think it was 2021. We were talking back and forth on Messenger, and I said, hey, look, let's jump on a call. I think I can help you, right? She wasn't a client just yet. She's like, yeah, I'm happy to jump on a call. However, I don't want to invest. And I was like, that's no problem. We'll walk through it and we'll see what we can do. Didn't sell her at all. Gave her some good advice. 2 days later, she messaged me, said, hey, Jason, can you send me the payment link so I can get this started? I'm like, okay, cool. Send her the payment link. She paid. And then for like a couple of years later, I wanted to look back at, how much she's actually paid us. And it's close to like $45,000 from someone who said to me she didn't want to invest. Right. And so that is a really, really big thing, is that people don't realize that retention can take a small thing into something that is huge. And then I looked at like 5 other clients who said similar things or had smaller niches, and they've paid me 25, 30, 40 grand. They don't even realize, but they're happy with it. And that happens because of just retaining clients rather than having to go and acquire all the time. Because that's just an absolute, what's everyone's biggest challenge on X? Like if you made a post, you said, hey guys, what are you struggling with? Everyone will say lead generation. So if that's everyone's challenge, and that's what all of the coaches are selling, why do we optimize our businesses for having to do that all the time? Makes no sense.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm focusing on right now. Like for me, what's important now is just when I have like a client, is to have them forever, or at least like as long as possible, to help them, because the more they grow as well, the more I can grow.
Yeah. Lifelong clients are super important. And a lot of people think though that there's so I have this retention formula that I always go through. Is there are 3 things for retention, and a lot of people think there's only one. Is what are people coming to you for? Results, right? Cool. So I'll just get them results and they'll just stick around. Well, my brother and I, we had a client that were paying us $2,000 a month, plus like $3-4 in ad spend. We were making them 50 to 80. They left us. They came back because the results were good. They left us again. They came back and I said, we're not doing this again. We're going to charge you $5,000 a month. Like, cool, we'll do that. Got them better results. They left us again. And the key was the results were always good, and they always said that. And what actually happened is they signed on with some person in the business's cousin or some BS, right? Some relationship. And that person turned on our ad campaign and was just, that's it. That's all they did in the ads manager. Just turned on our ad campaign. And I was like, well, that's bullshit. And they left us in the ad account. That's how stupid they were at this. But they stayed with them for so long because of the relationship. And that is the biggest thing, is that people miss that, is you need both. You obviously need results, but your relationship matters more. If anyone watches on my YouTube channel, my interview with Tom has been a client of mine for years and years. And there is periods where Tom's like, Jace, we need to scale to 20K a month. Like right now. I'm like, okay, cool. We put together a plan. Doesn't happen. And he still sticks around because our relationship is so good and he trusts that I know what I'm doing. And now he's like, all right, cool. 20K is the baseline. Let me go hit 30 this month, because he's built that over time, the relationship. But then the third thing that a lot of people miss is that clients will always have problems. It's just whether they're going to come to you to solve them. And so I have this client who we took him from like 20K to $96,000 in a month. And obviously he was pissed he didn't hit the 100. But like $96,000 in a month is fantastic. Really, really good. He left the next month.
Why?
And the reason is we had a great relationship with him. He was getting great results. He was like one of our biggest case studies, interviews, all of this sort of thing. But the reason that he left is because he didn't think that we had a roadmap to get him to the next stage. And at the time we really didn't, in fairness. Like 100K a month was a new thing for us. Like that wasn't reality. So the third thing that you need is a roadmap of what are the next challenges that you can solve with them at that next level. Otherwise, you can't just keep doing, like as a ghostwriter, you're like, okay, cool, they have 5,000 followers, let's just write the same stuff. Like, no, we need to write new stuff. At 10K, at 100K, right? What are the 100K? You just go to platitudes. It's simple as that. But like, that's the thing, is you need a roadmap. And it doesn't have to be revenue or follower base, whatever it is, but there are going to be new problems that you need to solve. So relationships, results, and roadmap is the key to retention.
Wow, that's beautiful. All right, I'll write that down. That was a great masterclass. So now I did want to ask you, so we were talking about, you did like a do for you digital marketing. What prompted you into doing more of, because I assume right now you're doing consulting, coaching, or are you still doing like both?
Yeah. So we run an agency. Well, we don't really run it. I don't know, makes like 2-3 grand a month. It's and we manage like 100 grand in ad spend. We've had this client for like 6-7 years, so we just do it. But we moved over to coaching. So there was a time, I think it was like 2018, where my brother and I were just like posting on Facebook and even posting in Facebook groups, just helping people out because we just like enjoyed that. We didn't actually know coaching was a thing because we never hired anyone or anything in the start with the agency. We just grew it like raw, like ourselves. We attended a Tony Robbins event and we were like, oh man, helping people is really cool. And so we put out like a quick little offer. I think it was like $600 for like 6 weeks of coaching. We did like one-on-one sessions and all of this. And we had, I think it was 10 people signed up and we were like blown away. We're like, wow, that's really cool. But that wasn't the reason we did it. Obviously, we're in it for the money. Coaching's easier than agency. I'll admit that to everyone here, right? It's simple as that. But one of the first things that made us go, wow, this is what we're meant to do, was a client of ours. He was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with his wife and 2 kids, and he worked overnight. So he worked a security job, and that's the only income that they had because she had to stay home with the kids. They couldn't do anything else. And it was like heartbreaking. So we put him on like this extended 2-year payment plan. And, you know, for 2 months, he's like, Jason, this isn't working. He's like, I'm about to give up. I was like, just please stick with it. And then the 3rd month, he hit 10K. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. And then 4 or 5 months in, he hit 20K. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. Then like it was 20K in a week. And he was like, oh, this is amazing. And so he then moved out to his house. He has a 4-bedroom house living, you know, luxury. Like it's really nice. And I was like, that's the cool thing is that, okay, yeah, we made money from him. But he is now transforming his kid's life and he's helping other people. And it's just growing so much. And that impact is just dramatic. And so that's one of the biggest reasons. As soon as we felt that, we're like, we need to do this. And it is selfish. Like, yeah, helping people, but like, it just feels good to help people. Like, let's all be real, right? Why do people post when they, you know, do charitable things? It's because it feels good. But it's also not a bad thing for that feeling. You don't feel bad for feeling good about helping people. You should feel good and own that. And so that's one of the reasons we moved over to coaching. And that's what we've been doing for the last like 5-6 years.
Right. So 5-6 years. So 2018, something like that. That's when you shifted. Wait, so, sorry. When did you start again the agency? Like when did you start the business?
2016. 2019 was like end of 2018, start of 2019 is when we started doing coaching. Yeah.
But the digital market, the agency started what year again?
2016. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. So were you already on Twitter at that point, or?
I was on Twitter. Like if everyone looks at my account, it says December 2012, but I was only on there for girls. I wasn't on there for like, you know, I didn't really know anything about Twitter. And so I wasn't on there until actually last year. About June last year, a friend of mine from Facebook said like, oh man, you should try Twitter out. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I paid him $3,000 to do a couple coaching sessions with me. He showed me what to do. And I was like, man, I really like this because it's much easier than Instagram. And I actually got my Instagram account banned at the time. So, you know, it helped out that I could use Twitter. And then I just fell in love with that platform and like the people on there. It was much easier for me than any other platform. So I just stuck around and got after it on there.
But where did you initially market? Is that like Instagram?
Facebook. Facebook was the big one. Yeah. So Facebook, and you can actually see like a lot of OGs who were on Facebook learn marketing in a different way to the people on Twitter. It's kind of why I do have an advantage is because, and there's nothing against Twitter, but you've always got to look at an industry and go, who is the established like big educator within that vertical? And so some of the big educators on Twitter are actually guys who are creators, not business owners. And so that's why we're seeing so much creator space on Twitter. Whereas Facebook, all of these guys, we built agencies, we built everything kind of like offline without social. And so the business is the first thing. And that's why we don't have that many followers, but the income is a lot higher. And I'm not talking down like any way. There's a lot of great operators, but business is always the first thing. So Facebook was the platform. And then like I tried Instagram, we built that up. We ran ads. We've got it banned several times. So yes, all other things.
I remember like one of the biggest guys. Well, I wasn't there, but I know one of the biggest guys before was the creator of school, Sam Ovens in Facebook, right? They got a big. Were you part of that?
Yeah, of course. Facebook, like anyone who you can tell someone who's taken Sam Ovens' stuff. Sam Ovens tactically, program not that good. Like if anyone has it, they'll attest to it. Like it was like cold email and like DMing people, and it was like it's fine, like that worked. What was the biggest thing was that he had it was I don't know 6 to 8 hour and a half long videos on mindset, and you're like,
Mm.
oh wow, that's where the difference was, and that really is the difference in a lot of people. And it's hard, especially when you're in the grind. It's like hard to even think like mindset is something that you should focus on, but it is. It always is.
So now you've created like a school account as well.
Mhm.
How's that going in for you?
Yeah, good. I have a free group and then we have a paid group. I'll be honest, is the engagement is fairly low on school. I think we're a couple years away from it being super adopted.
Mm.
The big reason for school like being low is the actual reason why Sam started it. Is Sam started it because he wanted to be off social media, but and like get away from dopamine, but dopamine's the reason people come back to things. So unfortunately, he has to kind of go into a little bit of an addiction, like
Right.
injected in people's veins. But until then, yeah,
Right. But and what um, fascinates me is that you call your group margin makers, which is like quite a unique name. Can you like talk more about what margin makers are? What's
yeah,
your
yeah.
vision?
So, my brother and I we talk a lot. He's my business partner, obviously. Is that we talk a lot, and there's this word that always kind of represents like what we're looking for. And when we're talking about finances, because there's been periods where it's been like super super tough in the business, and you just want some like margin, and I call margin just breathing room. Some
Mm.
the gap between like what you receive and then what you need to pay out, and it's just that's the margin in it. And just having more margin in your time, so having freedom, not having to go to things, not being obligations. I was like looking at today, I was like, man, I got 3 calls today, like what a crazy day. And I used to take 15 a day, so it's that's just having more margin, and then margin in your bank, margin in your time, margin in your mind, just that free space and breathing room to think. And it's just a word that's resonated with us. And I think that a lot of people do this is that they want to try to create some creative brand name,
Mm.
and brand names don't actually mean anything in themselves. You associate the meaning with it. And so anytime you see a brand name, it's because someone has pushed it harder than anything. So we're like, we like that name. Let's run with it and we'll push the meaning to it. Our Facebook group is called DM Beasts before. So worked really well for 7 years.
Right.
So yeah, so that's the kind of explanation behind it.
So one thing that like a recurring story you talk about in your email as well was like um, you took a sales call before when your son was getting born. Is that if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like that's like a unique story for you because it highlights what you were talking about, like the margin makers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so my son was born on the we went into the hospital Monday at 5 a.m. and he was born at 2 a.m. on the Tuesday, so it was a long
Yeah.
freaking day. And then on the Tuesday afternoon, my wife's like go home, go shower and stuff like that. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I went home and I showered, and I was like, well, this person's free. Let me take a sales call. Took a sales call and closed them. Inherently there's nothing wrong with that, with what I did, right? Like my wife said I was fine. I literally, the call was 10-15 minutes. I was straight back to the hospital, went and saw her, gave her all the things that she needed. There was nothing really wrong. She wasn't mad at me. I told her about it, but it was my mindset and my thoughts and my priorities. And it was one because we kind of needed that sale at the time. Like, I mean, not really. I think that that's also one of the things that I keep saying is like I needed it. We did 120K in June that year. That was our first 100K month. And then September that year was like 60 something of new business plus 40 of recurring. So it was crazy. We didn't really need it, but I had that in my head that I needed it. And I think that was the biggest like eye opener for me is like you need to focus where your priorities are and like prioritize what you really want. And it's because I didn't have margin in my time. I didn't have margin in my money because, yeah, we were making a lot, but we had like 12 team members that we had to pay. So that's kind of a big shift for me is like focus on the things that actually matter.
Is there like any big mistakes that stood out for you in your journey?
Yeah. It's really a simple one. Is that if you do anything for a long enough time period, it'll work.
Mm.
And so the hardest thing though is actually figuring out like what that is, because once you do, is you'll be able to grit the lower and the crappier months as they inevitably come. And I do think that sticking with something for longer is the easier way to go. So if you do pick something, pick it and stay with it for a long period of time and you'll win. And so for us, I think there's a couple ways to think about it. It's like the business model, the model, or like the economic model, and then kind of your offer, right? So the business model for us was coaching. That's been good. We've stuck on that. The model of like how we actually sell has changed. We've gone high ticket. We tried membership. We've gone low ticket, but now we're in a place where we're a mixture of both, and it's just like recurring revenue. Plus, we can have some high ticket influxes as well. And so that's the thing that we focus on a lot more. And I think that once you figure out like what that is that you need to just stick with it. And when it's a crappy month, believe that you can get through it, and you will. And then in a year, the crappy month will be like 50 grand versus, 5 grand. And so it just compounds over time. So that was the biggest mistake, I think, is just changing with emotion rather than changing because something's not working. We just like felt bad. So we're like, let me try something else.
Did you do that like for your own business?
Yeah, like 150 times.
Like, what did you do? What specific scenarios were there?
Yeah. So, I mean, the easiest way to look at it is the first model that we had with our business was the one that we kind of have now. And so it was a 4 grand program, was 500 down, 100 a week. And I really liked that because we could sign 20, 30 people pretty easily because it's kind of a no-brainer to pay that. And our recurring revenue was really good. Like we only needed 4 or 5 grand a week to have a good life. And so we had that. We had 40, 50 people in there generating that sort of income. And it was really good. But then I think we had like the hard thing with that is that we wanted to invest in a program and we were like, oh, well, let's just get, some clients to pay it off. And we signed 10 clients in a week and we're like, we still can't even afford like the deposit of the program because it was like only 5 grand. So we were like, okay, we need to go to high ticket. Started doing high ticket, which was cool. We that was when we did, the 120K in a month, like crazy sort of numbers. And then we're like, okay, but the next month after 120 was like 40. It was like just night and day because we cleared the pipeline and payment plans weren't that much. So we just kept shifting between those two models. And that's what happened is the roller coaster. And then as soon as I picked just like, cool, let's just go recurring, but like have an option if people want to pay in full, but the pricing upfront is still low. The reason that it's low is because we keep people for a lot longer.
Right.
And so that is the mistakes I made, just changing offers too often.
So, because I'm thinking that then changing offers too often. Do you see that? Like, has any of your clients done that as well in your experience? That
Yeah, a lot.
like what kind of scenarios happened?
Yeah, so I think that like your offer is like an offer is dynamic. It's not just
Yeah.
like this is the only thing that we focus on. And people will notice that like I add and take away and I have different angles for the exact same offer. The offer in
Mm.
itself is always the same. And that's what it should be. And people should always have like as I said, it's the business model, so coaching done for you, whatever it is, the actual like fulfillment and delivery model, and then the offer. The model should always stay the same. What are you charging? How the economics works? How you're keeping people? But the offer can be slightly different. And so what the problem is people change the model completely. They're like, I'm going membership to low ticket to high ticket to this. We've had a client who was super successful in the dating space, and he was like at 250K a month. He's like, I don't want clients anymore. Let's just go low ticket because he didn't want to keep his clothes on. He wanted to fire him. Went from 250 to like 100. He's like, well, I'm still okay. To like 80 to like 50 because it just kept dropping because he kept changing, right? And
Mm.
it wasn't the fact that he wasn't any worse. It was that the model literally paid him less. And so that's what I just think people can't change. Don't try to change the model
Right.
to get paid less.
Okay, I understand now. Like
Yeah.
that took a while to register. Model versus offer.
Two
Gotcha.
different things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, now you mentioned you've been in the game like for quite some time. What
Mhm.
have you noticed like change in the digital marketing space? Like, what trends have you noticed?
I actually think that that's the biggest problem, to be honest,
Yeah.
is that trends are too heavily influencing people.
Mm.
Is that I think that everyone just added like AI to the back end of their offer when there's no actual AI in it. And I think
Mm.
that too many people jump and, change with trends when ultimately what always works will always work. So the fundamentals is what people need to focus on more than anything. I think
Right.
trends. So this is again going back to the talent versus what like effort conversation is that trends should be in addition to what's already working. So let's just say that a new platform comes across. Let's just use TikTok, for example, right?
Mm.
TikTok shouldn't be like, cool, let me shift to going TikTok to website to this to that. Let me go TikTok to my VSL that's already working to my email sequence. So it's just in addition to, so you can leverage the hell out of the traffic, and inevitably when it slows down, like it has for like, I don't know, business TikTok, I don't think that's a thing. It slowed down on there, is that you can go, okay, cool, well, let's just like do ads or we bring back Twitter or whatever it is back to the core function of the business. So I think that too many people will just jump on the trends and then the model, again, it's going back to it, the model
The
changes
more.
around the trend. And so some of the trends though that I have noticed is that a lot of people will try to do that, is just shift and change. And you can see it, right?
Yeah.
On Facebook, it's always funny, is that if you go to someone's profile on Facebook and you click on their cover photo and just swipe through like 10, you're like, all right, they've changed about 76 different times. So wish you could do that on Twitter. It'd be funny.
Right, because you can't see the past things
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So now you'll be having this event this November,
Mm-hmm.
compounding offer. Tell me more about it. Like, what's the um, vision behind it? What was your inspiration? Like, what's it about?
Yeah. So 3 day free event. There's an option to upgrade to VIP. It's just $47. You get a bunch of courses and then you get an extra hour Q&A with me. Is the goal of it is really, I don't know, when my brother and I started, one thing for us was that we found a lot more value in being in a room than just like learning something. And I don't think like anything that I'm going to be teaching on the challenge is going to be super helpful, of course. But there's not going to be anything in there where you're like, oh, this is a new way to do things, because I just
Right.
don't believe in that. I think that it's fundamentals, but it is a different way to do things because a lot of people aren't teaching the fundamentals. It's not something revolutionary, some AI hack, whatever it is.
Mm.
So Chris and I wanted to create something where I'm like, how can we get more people in a room where we can support them? And at worst, our intention is to help them and to motivate them for the rest of the year. Now, obviously, you can't just sit here and say like, oh, I just want to help people out. We want at the end of the 3 days, I'm going to say, hey, you guys enjoyed this? Cool. We can help you a little bit further. You can choose to do it or not. There's no hard sell. I don't say you're an idiot if you don't buy, none of that sort of stuff. Right? But it's that simple for us. It's just like we want to help people. So over the 3 days, the first day we focus on compounding offer. So talking about how we can create monthly recurring revenue, but not taking a hit in terms of actual cash collected each month. And it's
Mm.
more of a hybrid with a back end monthly recurring that you start, and then you can go full monthly recurring once it's a stability. Then on the second day, we talk about invisible sales funnel. So I think that like the whole quote of like, people love to buy, but they don't love to be sold. I think it's a little bit of a weak quote, is that people don't mind being sold if they're being sold the right thing, right?
Right.
And so we want to create an environment where they don't feel like it. Okay, I'm not being sold here, but yeah, cool. I'm leading myself to investigate this person more. And so we want to create self-led prospects by putting them through a funnel that doesn't necessarily feel like a funnel. And then on the third day, we want to talk about like how we can automate a lot of this stuff and allow for systems, because I woke up, well, it was actually last night, is that I had like a couple of messages of people messaging me certain words. I was like, oh, where are these people coming from? And it was from YouTube. And it was like 6 videos ago I said that to someone. And I even forgot the word. I had to look it up. And so they came over, DMs, and we didn't have any automations on, but you can automate it and you can message them and you can enroll them as a client. So it's really about creating the systems in place to have everything constantly working for you 24/7. So that's the goal.
That's awesome. So one thing I did want to like tell you. So I joined your daily sales challenge. Like I think that was a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, man, like I know you said that it's not mind blowing what you say, which is true because it's not. It's the basics, as you said. It's just the fundamentals. But man, it really helped me, dude. Like, because now I'm starting to realize. Before I was so focused on like just growing my X account, like trying to. Because I was thinking, like if I get more people in my X account, like more chance of winning, dude. I close more clients simply by sitting down and just sending DMs. That's it. Like just
Funny how that works, right?
talking to people. Because you said there, it's like if you want to sell something, like the easiest way to do that is to just go to one person and tell them, "Yo, you want to buy my shit?"
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
truth. Yeah, it's funny. So I'm actually having a challenge where we have a couple of clients who have like lots of followers. Like I'm talking hundreds of thousands, and they are much harder to deliver results for and getting them clients than some people who have 1,000 followers. Because the people who have hundreds of thousands of followers, they think it's easy and they think this should be simple. And they're like
Right.
sometimes not willing to do the little things of the DMs or stuff like that. But in addition to that, they've built followers who like their stuff, not them. And so it's a hard thing to balance and transition. The founder of Quest, Tom Bilu, I forget how you say his name, but
Yeah.
he actually made a post on this the other day. He said that the bigger his audience got, the harder it was to sell stuff. And
Mm.
so he actually calls it a different frame. He says you need to create content like you need to create the product and then create content through the product, not
Yeah.
content to the product. And so what he means by that is like he was trying to sell all these different marketing things and all of that. And instead he like, okay, cool. Well, people are listening to me to learn about buying, building businesses or whatever it is. So create the product, then pull the content out of that. And that's your content versus trying to go viral and all of that sort of thing. And yes,
Yeah.
that is harder to create and it will not get as many views. People all the time, like I lost a client because he goes, "Oh man, you don't have that many Instagram followers." I was like, "Okay, sick. Go with the other guy." The other guy told him to buy Instagram followers. The other guy told him to buy Instagram followers. It's that simple. So it's the business first. And I think that that's lost on a lot of people.
So you mentioned there, like you said, 100K followers. People like their stuff, but not them. What do you mean by that?
So as an example is that I talk about this quite often is that on like social media is a dopamine game. So there's just as much dopamine from making a friend as there is making a sale. And that's why a lot of people make friends. But the same is to be said around content. Is let's say that you have, and an example would be, let's say that you want to get bigger at the gym. And so people will, instead of like going and investing in a program and like, protein and whatever it is they'll go and follow an influencer who is jacked. And they feel like they have gotten big at the gym because they're following that person and seeing their content. They feel they've changed themselves just because they're following that person. And what that person does though is like, okay, here's how you do bicep curls. Here's how you do that. And so you're just listening to that person because you feel like you've done the bicep curls. But instead, if that person would create content on, okay, so your biceps aren't growing, you need to do this, right? They're pain. You need to figure out, you need to do this and give them an actual like, okay, this is the plan, but not exactly the full plan. So they need to go and buy from you. That is when you make real change rather than just like giving them the dopamine. And that's what a lot of
Mm,
people do with big audiences. And that's why they have big audiences because they have dopamine fiends, not buyers.
interesting. Sorry, can you repeat that? Like the fitness guy example. What would
Yeah.
like? Yeah, can you repeat that?
So what the actual example is like, so he would create a content on like, here's how you do bicep curls, or like, here's how you
Right.
get better, bigger biceps, right? And give him like 6 exercises.
Mm,
Cool. That person feels good for watching that. What he
mm.
needs to do is create content around like, you want big biceps. Here's why you're not getting them. You're not doing this. You're
Oh,
not doing this and this. Join my like, and then you can have a CTA join my program to get. And that is, yes, it's less dopamine because you actually feel bad that you're like, oh shit, I'm actually not sleeping, I'm not eating, or I don't know how to do the stuff he's talking about. Now I'm going to buy from him.
Gotcha. So you don't. So it's somewhat like you don't give the solution; you point out problems.
Yeah. And so there are two, like, so value, right? A lot of people talk about value content. What is value content? Value is what a lot of people think is like something that is valuable. So where you give, like, here is the cheat sheet, right? That's valuable, right? What is actual value is when someone's behavior changes. That's the only way that you can actually do anything. Is it's valuable when it's value when your behavior changes. That's what your content should be, is pushing people to change behavior. That's actually a little bit of a surface level form of content, though. That's what most people should do. So value change would be a little bit about like, behavior change would be, okay, so you need to stop doing this, and here's the reasons why you need to stop doing this. But the best form of content, which is actually a lot more difficult to create, and it's something that it will take time, is not not behavior change. It is perspective change. It is mindset change. Because if you look at this, is like, I have this in my presentation. I say, like, who's one of the best educators in the world right now in terms of, like, I guess, students. And, you could say Harvard, this and that. But Andrew Tate, right? Have you ever seen him post 5 steps to creating an Instagram carousel? No. But he's convinced people that there's this matrix coming after them and they need education. He's changed their mind. And so as soon as you have that, you have control. And say anyone can say what they like about him, but it is a brilliant marketing tactic because he's focused on their mind, not actually value. And it's the same with Tai Lopez. Tai Lopez, what he did, he studied psychology, and he knew that young men loved cars and hot girls. So what did he do? I'm here in my garage with my Lamborghini, but that's not the most impressive thing. My bookshelf is. Girls, books. Buy books, get girls, get car. We're stupid. We're silly at heart, but it's just the truth. And that's how you can do things.
Kind of reminds me of what you said as well, like Sam Ovens, right? Because Sam Ovens was like, call it the same things, but what he changed was your mindset.
Yeah, and Sam actually even admitted it, is because his videos were actually filmed in his beautiful New York apartment with a suit, and it was all nice. He did things like that. If you look at Sam now, he's got long hair, a beard, and he lives in a friggin' cabin, right? That's who he actually is. And so, and same with Tai Lopez in a way. And that's the thing, is that you've got to use the advantages that you have and the psychology behind it to get somewhere.
So for you, what would that perspective change? Like, what is that perspective change that you're trying to incite to people?
So for me, it's a little bit different to what I would recommend for a lot of people. Is for me, one thing that I want to convey is an identity shift. And so an identity shift is the most powerful form of change. If anyone reads Atomic Habits, there are 3 layers of change: outcomes, processes, and identity. So what an outcome is like, I'm going for a run. Cool. What a process is, I'm putting my shoes at the door, 5:30, I'm getting up and going for a run. I don't need any of that stuff if I need to go for a run. I'm a runner. I just run, right? Whatever, it's 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 4 p.m., it doesn't matter, I'm a runner, I run. Identity is the form where you can actually get shit done. And as soon as you take on that identity, any pains, problems, or struggles you have with something is overcome, because that's just who you are. And so for me, as a content creator, if you will, is that I want people to become the identity of the margin maker, right? Like, that's the thing that I want for people, because business is hard. Let's create more margin. Let's have more freedom. And so what I talk about, if you want to attract people, talk about your values, because they will value those things. I talk about family, freedom, having profit, investing, all of those sort of things that I really, truly cherish, because I want that for my people, right? And so for me, it's about creating an identity, an aspirational identity that I try to embody. And I'm not perfect at it. I try to embody it as much as possible so my people can have something to aspire to.
Awesome, man. So yeah, you've created margins in your life. You have a beautiful family. You have a good business, and you're rocking it with boxing.
Yeah.
uh, um, Anything that you'd like to announce? Future plans?
No, we're just doing more of the same thing. So we're doing the challenge November 19th to the 21st. That's the big thing at the moment. We're actually, so from that date, like after we finish, we'll announce our program. We're actually going to announce the offer is insane of all of the things that you get. It will solve every problem that you have. We're going to take on 30 clients within that intake. So it's a big intake. It's the biggest we've done for years, I think. And then we'll probably just focus on those clients for a couple of months and go from there.
Awesome, man. So I like to ask this question. Final question is, if I would have asked something within our conversation, what would it have been, and how would you answer it?
Wait, what do you mean? Sorry.
If I would have asked something you wish I asked, what would it have been, and how would you answer it? So if there's one question you wish I asked that was confusing, I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm not sure. I mean, with these in general, like speaking at a macro level, I just like flowing with any sort of question. So I don't have a set intention with
Right.
it. So I don't know. It's not going to be a good answer for you, but I wouldn't ask any differently because I enjoy just having the flow, to be honest.
You're the first one who got off that question very smoothly. But yeah, I appreciate you, Jason. Where can people find you? Your newsletter?
Yeah, on Twitter, Jason C Fox on Twitter, or if you go to Jason C Fox, just go to Twitter. That's the easiest place. Or YouTube, I'm on there as well. Just search my name, you'll find it. There's a ton of good videos on there, and then I link out my newsletter all over the place, so you can find it on socials.
Awesome, man. Thanks for hopping in. I appreciate you. I admire your work, and check them out.